Well, hello to my Sunday school friends. It is really nice to see you. I hope that you are having a good summer. I hope that you're doing some reading and some thinking and some studying, that you're not losing everything that you learned in school. But we're going to keep doing these lessons, and that'll help you keep thinking about something, right? So last time we talked about David's son Absalom. And Absalom decided that he wanted to be king. He didn't want to wait for his father to die. He didn't care that God had chosen someone else to be the next king. He wanted to be king, and he actually started a rebellion against his own father. Remember that? That he asked his dad if he could go to Hebron to worship, and David said sure, and he was happy. But what he didn't know is that Absalom didn't go there to worship. He went there. He was crowned king there. He raised an army. It was very scary, and David wound up fleeing from Jerusalem with some of his soldiers and his household so that Absalom wouldn't kill him. That's where we left off, that horrible idea that David's own son wanted to kill his dad and become the next king that way. So, how does that story end? That's today's lesson. So David is with his army, and Absalom is building his army, and after a while it came time for this to actually go to battle. So Absalom led his own troops out to meet his father's troops. David wanted to go with his soldiers, but his soldiers said to him, absolutely not. Right? You're worth 10,000 of us. Even if half of us die, the nation will survive. But if you die, it's over. So no, you can't come with us. And David said, all right, I'll do what you think is best. So David divided his army into three companies. He had commanders over the thousands and over the hundreds, and he stood by the gate as his army marched out to do battle with Absalom's army. And they fought a fight in the forest called Ephraim. And they fought this fight, and David's soldiers did really well. Now, I forgot to tell you that as they were marching out, David told all his soldiers, please, take care of my son Absalom. I mean, he knew Absalom was trying to kill him, but he was still Absalom's daddy, and he still loved his son, and he told his soldiers, please, take care of my son. So they're fighting this fight in the forest of Ephraim, and David's soldiers do very, very well, and Absalom was riding on a mule commanding his forces, and he had the misfortune of running into a group of David's soldiers. And David's soldiers killed his soldiers, and Absalom ran away on the mule, and as he was riding away, the mule went under an oak tree, and Absalom's head got caught between two branches of the oak tree, and he's hanging there by his head. He can't get loose, so he's holding on, and he's stuck. He is so stuck, and the mule kept going. And some of these soldiers, they saw Absalom there, and they looked at each other, and they all remembered that David had told them not to hurt Absalom. So they ran and they went to David's general, a guy named Joab, and they said, we found Absalom. And Joab said, did you kill him? I said, no, we didn't kill him. We heard David say, take care of him. And Joab said, if you'd killed him, I would have given you 10 pieces of silver and a fancy belt. And the soldier said, if I had 1,000 pieces of silver in my hand, the king still said, don't do it. Don't hurt Absalom. But Joab, he was David's general, but he didn't always do what David said. He had his own ideas too. And Joab took some of his men, and they went and they found Absalom and they killed him. And they took his body down and they dug a deep pit and they put Absalom in the deep pit and they put stones on top of it. And then he sounded a trumpet and called back David's army. The battle is won. There's nothing else to fight about. And Absalom's soldiers, as they heard that Absalom was dead, they were terrified because they've been supporting a king that's dead now, and David's going to be king again, and they're in trouble. So they just melted away. They all ran for home as fast as they could, to pretend that they hadn't been any part of this rebellion, of course. Well, Anyway, so there was a guy named Ahimaaz who wanted to run to David with the news, and Joab said, no, not today. And he picked one of the soldiers that had been fighting on David's side. This guy was a Cushite. This is a person from northern Africa, where Egypt and Sudan are now, parts of Ethiopia. For the Old Testament, that people in that part of the world were called the Cush or Cushites. And so Joab got one of these soldiers, the Cushite, and said to him, you run back and tell David what's happening. So he said, of course I will, and he started to run toward David. Now, Ahimaaz really wanted to tell David too, so he pestered Joab, and he said, please let me go, please let me run. And finally Joab said, all right, you can go tell David too. And Ahimaaz actually outrun the Cushite. He got to David before the northern African soldier did. And David, the watchers in the city saw people running in, saw these two guys running in, and said, the guy in front looks like Ahimaaz. And David said, oh, he's a good man, he'll tell me. So Ahimaaz came and he knelt down before the king, and David said, what's the news? And Ahimaaz said, a great victory has been won, my king. A wondrous victory has been run. And then David said, tell me about Absalom. And Ahimaaz chickened out. He knew that Absalom was dead. But he said, things were really, really kind of crazy when I left. There was a lot of commotion. I'm not really sure what happened. I'm sure that the next messenger will tell you. And then the man from northern Africa, the soldier from northern Africa, the Cushite, showed up. And David said, do you know anything about my son? And the Cushite, he knew that this was going to be hard news. And he said to the king, King, may all your enemies be as that young man is now. May all your enemies be dead. And so David understood what he was being told, and he began to weep. Oh, my son Absalom, it would be better for me if I had died instead of you. And he cried and he cried and he wailed and he covered his face, and he was just brokenhearted. Now, he kept it up. And he continued to cry and wail. It would be better if I was dead than you. Oh, my son, my son, my son. And these soldiers of his that had risked his life, some of whom had died and their families were there, they saw the king mourning, and they came back into camp with shame, like they'd done the wrong thing. And Joab put up with that just for a little while, and then he went to the king and he gave him some tough love, and he said, listen, the way you're carrying on, people who risked their lives for you, people who died for you, they got the idea that it would have been better if they all died and Absalom had been alive. You keep this up, you're going to lose everybody. Right? This is not a way for you to act. And David knew that was true, that he needed to be grateful for the soldiers that had risked their lives. He needed to be grateful to the families of the men who had died to try to get him his throne back. And so David went back out to the gate of the city, and he greeted his soldiers, and he thanked them, and he consoled the families who had also lost loved ones, and he remembered his responsibilities as a king. Being a king isn't just that you get to do whatever you want to do, right? Being a king, being a leader of any kind, means that you have responsibilities. Freedom and responsibility always go together. Leadership and responsibility go together. It's not just being in charge. It's being in charge and doing the things that you're supposed to do, no matter what it costs you. And so David remembered how he was supposed to conduct himself. He remembered that he had responsibilities to his people, and he began doing that again. And little by little, David regained the people that had followed Absalom. He reunited the country. He took his place again in Jerusalem, and so he went back to being king, and he went back to leading Israel as he should, even though they'd all been together through this horrible time. All right, so that's today's story. I hope that you have a lovely week. If you wanted to paint me a picture, or if you wanted to send me a drawing or ask me questions, you can do that. You know how to get a hold of me. If you don't, your parents do. But I will see you next week with another story about King David and the kingdom of Israel. Talk to you soon. Bye.